Hello, 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 and welcome to my YouTube channel. My name is Jameelah, and I am a master manifester. And I'm sure you are too because you are watching content like this. The name of this lovely channel is Holistic Manifesting because I believe in a whole body, whole mind, and whole being experience when it comes to manifesting the amazing lives that we are choosing to live. Now, it's my Sunday, so you already know my hair is wet underneath here and I got it all wrapped up, but I don't like that to stop me from getting on here and sharing something on Sunday. And I was about to cook for the week, got all these little vegetables cut up already, some broccoli, carrots. I'm gonna make some chicken Alfredo, well, chicken fettuccine. That's what we call it. Nonetheless, and then I'll do my little packing up. And I got asparagus this week because my daughters promised me that they would eat vegetables if I got stuff they like. And I said, what do you like? And they said asparagus, so that's what we're having. So nonetheless, what I'm talking about is frequency today. I'm talking about frequency because I think it's a place where we don't spend enough time, that we spend a lot of time and energy on every other aspect of our lives and making sure this is in place, that's in place, that's in place. But we don't really spend time on how we're feeling, whether or not we are aligned with the things that we want to experience in this life. I've seen so many people that are saying all the right things. I mean, they have the language on lock, the language of spirituality and relaxation and calm and peace. They have it together. They're doing all the right things. They're doing the meditations. They're doing the prayers. They're doing the breath work. They're doing the walking in nature, all these wonderful things. But at the same time, they're not in the right space. They're not in the right head space for the most part. And what we don't understand is how deeply affected or impacted we are when it comes to our thoughts, how we're thinking about things, and what we're manifesting, what we're creating in our lives, right? Many people, and first that's sideways to that little word manifesting, because I always see a lot of contention around it. I don't really know what other people think about it or what other people feel about it. But for me, when I say the word manifesting, it's literally just co-creating with the universe. It's literally just saying, you know, I'm here and I'm an active participant in this life. I don't take a passive role to everything in this life. I take an active role. When I see something that I like and I want to do, I go towards it. I don't say, well, let me just sit here and wait and see what happens. If it's in the plan, because how do I know if it's in the plan if I don't put any effort towards it? That's just my mindset. So that's what I mean when I say manifesting, right? It doesn't mean you just get everything you want by closing your eyes and thinking about it long and hard enough. A lot of people believe that. I don't have a disregard against it, but I don't think that's always the way. That's just my mindset, you know? And it could be, but it's just not always from what I've seen. And so when I talk about frequency and your thoughts controlling so much of it, it's kind of like being the exact example of what it is you want to experience, but at the same time, your mindset about it is not completely there. And when I say frequency and alignment, I'm talking about you're not fine-tuned. It's like, and a good example is like listening to the radio. When you're listening to the radio and you tune into the perfect frequency, you're going to get everything on that frequency and it's going to come in crystal clear. When you are in between frequencies, right, that's when you get static. And so many of us are surrounded by static in our lives. We're in between frequencies constantly. We're feeling this way. We're thinking this way. We're doing these acts, but we are also having a doubtful mindset. We are saying these things, but then we're also having actions that are going in another way. So what happens that winds up having us somewhere in the middle, which means that we're creating a lot of static in our lives. And we have too much static in our lives. That means we can't tap into the clarity that's going to get us to the experiences or the people or the places that we want to have access to in our lives. Another thing when I think about frequency that people don't talk about enough, and maybe they do, but who you are surrounded by and what you are surrounded by is everything. When I tell you that it is literally really hard to be in a certain headspace or to have a certain mindset or to have a certain approach to life when you're surrounded by people who are not on the same page as that. And that's not saying that everybody you come in contact with, everybody you interact with has to think just like you, has to believe in what you believe in, has to be on the same page with everything you're on the same page with. I actually feel like when you find situations like that, you're not really growing because you are like in an echo chamber, right? But it is to say that there's always a higher way of thinking. There's a higher way of being. There's a best version of yourself that you haven't tapped into yet. There's always a different perspective you can put on any situation. There's always a more positive outcome if you choose to see it in a different way, right? And that right there is priceless. is one of the things that I found really, really challenging as far as my own life, is being able to bring those people around me who feel that way, who are not bogged down by the systems of the world and what's happening outside all the time. Because what's happening outside, what's happening in the world of politics, what happening in the world, the global context of everything, in economics, all these wonderful areas of life, it doesn't necessarily impact you on a personal level unless you allow it to. And when things don't impact you on a personal level, a lot of people think that means that you don't care about it. It does not mean that I don't care about it, but it means that thinking about it more, making myself sick is not going to make other people more healthy. And that's a good analogy. I've heard that before. It's like if you walk into a space and you happen to be really healthy and everybody else happens to be sick. Being sick doesn't help the environment, right? But being healthy and putting your energy out there and having a positive mindset, that is what improves the environment, right? So who you are surrounded by and what you are taking in every day is going to have a huge impact on you. A lot of people think things like social media are harmless. They think, let me watch this TV show. I honestly can tell you how receptive I am to this, because I love these little crime shows. And sometimes I watch it once every couple of weeks or so, because I don't want to consume myself with anything related to true crime, because I've done that before and I've seen the effects. I did it like a couple of days ago. I was watching something before I went to sleep and I had a terrible night's sleep. And it wasn't even just like, murderous dreams or, craziness or running from somebody in the dark. It wasn't anything like that, but my spirit was shaken. I was uneasy. I was unsettled. And I was thinking to myself, had I taken in something that was a little bit better, had I meditated on something else before I went to bed that night, then my sleep would have been a little bit better. And I feel like this goes across the board for everywhere in our lives. It depends on how you choose to see it, how you choose to see anything that you are in. And that will dictate how you respond to it and how you feel about it. How you feel about everything determines whether or not you are in alignment with that thing. If you feel like something is beyond your reach, if you feel like it's beyond your grasp, then it's always going to be something that's beyond your grasp, right? There are certain things that I refuse to think differently about. It doesn't matter how much money I ever have in my account. It doesn't matter how much material things I have or don't have or whatever. I always feel abundant. And I always feel abundant because I know that there are things that I'm not paying attention to that are bringing me great abundance in my life, because it's so easy to get hyper focused on the things that are not working or the things that don't look good or the balances that you want to improve, right? So it really doesn't matter. At any given time, you can come to me and ask me about, especially financial abundance, and I'm always going to say I'm abundant. And that's just my mindset, and it's always been that way, and I've chosen to stay in that position. And I feel like that's why more financial abundance and things like that find me, because I'm always in the frequency of it. I'm always in the space of it. I never let the things that's happening on the outside related to it dictate it. And that's not to say I don't have moments to where I'm just like, oh, should I be worried? Should I be? And those moments have happened in my life. But at the end of the day, I bring myself back to, there are things in my life that I'm grateful for, that I have access to, that is bringing me abundance, that I don't even have the attention span to even notice. But I know they're there. I know that it's available to me. And I don't want to ever get into the space to where I'm thinking like this, good things never happen to me. I never have access to this. I'm always behind. I'm never going to catch up on this. I'm always going to be poor. I'm always going to be broke, or any type of mindset like that. And who we are surrounded by really impacts that, because it's too hard to try to dig yourself out of a poor mindset around people that think differently about it all the time. I've even had this kind of thing happen when it comes to my value as a woman, my value as a human being. And whenever I was in spaces to where it was questioned heavily and people were trying to get me to see myself as lesser value, to see myself in a certain light that I refused to see myself in, it was always a challenge for me to say, okay, you need to remove this entity out of your space, because it's too hard to have the uphill climb to know that what they're saying is not the truth of who you are, is not your innate existence, and to still try to be in that group or be in that space. It's like, I don't have time for that. I don't know about you, but I don't have time to sit there and always try to either ignore certain conversations or ignore certain comments, or to always dig myself out of a conversation where it's not something that's a positive light on who I am. I talk about that a lot in my book, Thriving Solo, a single mother's guide to manifesting strength, success, and happiness. And the reason why I talk about it so much is because when you are a mom that's single in this world, there's a lot of negativity that sometimes comes along with that from other people looking in. Even though you're the person that's taking the responsibility of raising the kids, even though you're doing your very best, even though you find yourself having to be so many, having to play so many roles for the children in the household, right? If you sit yourself in environments where people are constantly telling you that you're at a deficit and that you're not enough and that, you did something wrong and you created this situation and you're a terrible person because now you have a household where it's just you, all these things that I've heard people say. If you get caught up into that, how are you supposed to be the greatest version of who you are? How are you supposed to bring your children the greatest version of who you are? So your frequency is everything. You'll even find yourself attracting people and mates that are seeing the world and seeing you in the same way. They'll look at you and try to treat you as if they're doing you a favor, as opposed to finding a wonderful, beautiful person that they can spend and share their lives with. And you'll start to buy it because everything around you is showing you evidence of it. But what it is sometimes is that when we are not tuned into that evidence because we've been raised a certain way, we've been taught a certain type of belief system, we've been brought up around certain types of mindsets and attitudes, we have to do the work of pulling out those things that show us what we understand. I didn't put do not disturb on, oopsie. That we have to put the active work in pulling those things out of our environments, because if we're just looking at the results of what we see around us or what the people are saying around us or how the world is reacting around us, then we're always going to be in that sunken space. We're always going to be in that state to where we're not enough, we don't have enough, we're not doing the right things, we don't have the right things, right? And so one of my biggest things I love to focus on is frequency. And that's why rest and relaxation is also a huge component of that. Because to me, one of the steps that I take is when you get from around those groups that are feeding you that bad information or that are just not up to par with the way that you see yourself in your life and where you're trying to go, pull yourself back from that environment. That's when you truly can start to get rest and relaxation, because you're not only mentally out of this space, and you're spiritually out of this space, emotionally you're cutting those ties, but at the same time you physically have room to rest and get some relaxation and replenish yourself. And in that clarity, in those moments, that's when you can find that peace that allows you to get in the right alignment, that allows you to get out of the space of all the static and get into a clean frequency so you can attract and experience those things that you want to experience in life. Most of what people are dealing with on a regular basis is being surrounded by too much noise, too much chaos, too much of what other people are doing and saying and creating in the environment that you don't need to have access to. And when you can't get that frequency fine-tuned, it's almost like saying the right things, doing the right things, having all the gratitude journals and doing all the breath work and doing the meditations and saying the right prayers and doing the affirmations. All of it means nothing, because you are putting out one thing, but you're taking in something else. And it's putting you smack dab in the middle of those frequencies and creating static for you. And that's what a lot of people are sitting in. So that's why we might see a little bit of what we want show up in our lives, a little bit of the good, a little bit of the fun, a little bit of the things we want to experience. And then it's like pulled back and brought back into a space where you're like, well, how did that happen? And a lot of times what people do is forget. They forget that when they put certain people or places or environments in another space in their life and they didn't allow it to take up too much real estate or too much importance, when they start feeling good again and they realize, oh, I feel so light and free, I feel so amazing, I could actually go hang around these spaces again. And that's what a lot of people are doing before their frequency is solidified. And because of that, it's easy for those environments, because they're strong, their pull is strong, they're powerful. They have a lot of power in complacency and in comfort and in rejecting expansion on many levels. And so it's so easy to get sucked back into that space. And then you wonder why. It's like, well, why was everything working for me? And then it stopped working. And then I can never just get in a place where everything's just working out for me, where everything's just even keel, where I'm just doing good. And that's just what I have access to. You can, but once you get there, you have to maintain the frequency. And being willing to maintain that frequency means that certain people, places, and things can't be in your immediate space. You can't have access to it on a regular basis because it's going to bring you right back to that space. So what I think is most important of anything, even if you have a lifestyle of rest and ease, which is amazing, even if you have a lifestyle to where your job is not hard, your relationships are not hard, on a regular basis, your life is pretty laid back, you'll create more and you'll have access to more things that you want to experience, more ways to help other people, more ways to give yourself to other environments, more ways to experience the world, to travel and do things that you want to do, more ways to do that when you are in alignment. And I think that is the piece so many people are missing, because that is the piece that takes the most work. It's one thing to say all the right things. It's one thing to do all the right things, but to actually put that work into saying what's happening on the inside is not really matching what's the outside. That's the biggest work for a lot of people, because so many people would prefer to just walk around and look like it on the outside and look like they are, look like they're being loved and appreciated, look like they have great relationships with their family and friends, looks like they have financial abundance, as opposed to truly doing the work that it takes in order for the alignment to show. And the reason why is because when you first start doing that work, when you really start getting to the space where you're like, this work is most important out of my life, getting right on the inside, getting in alignment, getting on the right frequency. This is the most important thing. The stuff that wasn't built in that type of environment, the stuff that wasn't built on that solid foundation, it's going to start falling away. And what happens is people first see the things that they're attached to start falling away, and many people can't keep going. They get scared, they get frightened, they get uptight about it, and they're just like, nope. And then they go right back into the cocoon of making everything look right on the outside, or making everything look a certain way. But then at the same time, they're struggling with the frequency that would actually allow them to live in that space without having to do pretension, without having to, misrepresent themselves in any kind of way, without feeling insecure about somebody else who's living and walking and talking and doing the work on the inside in that space, right? So just remember that. That's what I have to share today. It's Sunday. I feel like I went on a tangent, but I hope it was useful. You want to get into the space where you're always focused on, let me get my frequency right. That's why rest and relaxation is so important, because you got to get the static out of your space. You got to get the crazy thoughts out. You got to get the mindset to where you actually believe what you are working forward to. And even when you don't believe it yet fully, you still got to change the thoughts, because the more you change the thoughts, the more you redirect your thoughts into other places, the more you can start replacing those with thoughts that are going to be in alignment with where you want to go and what you want to do. And when I tell you, when you're rested and when you're in alignment, the oddest things will happen. Like the way I jumped on that video the other Sunday, that was 2 weeks ago, Sunday. I jumped on that video and I just started talking, and I had my head wrap on. Now, mind you, I never do videos with my head wrap on. Sometimes I've stopped and said, I want to do a video, but I'm not going to do one today because I washed my hair and I didn't do my hair yet. And so I got to go do all that. And so for whatever reason that day, I just didn't care. And I got on there and I talked about something that I didn't even have written in my notes anywhere. So it was just an off the cuff kind of fun thing. And it wound up bringing in so much more people to be able to connect with and share these things that I've learned in life, and all this wonderful information that I have bouncing around in my head constantly that's worked for me that might work for other people. And I was thinking about that the other day. It's like it was almost triple the amount of subscribers now and views, and it's just that it's beautiful to see that this time and energy that's been put in this direction, it's now creating abundance there. And what I attribute it to is being rested and being in the right frequency. I was just floating that day. I was just good. I was like, man, you've co-created something beautiful. You believe this world was possible for you. You believe this life was possible. You believe that nothing in this world was going to slow you down from being a co-creator of it. And now look at you. You're in that ebb and flow part of it. You're in the flow part of it where you can rest, where you can like do easy things like cooking on the weekend and like relaxing, watching a movie with my daughters, or going to the park, or going to yoga, all these things. And it's not, nobody's looking for you. You're not out of breath trying to do it. You're not fighting any systems trying to get it done. And then the work that you do is fairly easy. And I think that's something we got to get comfortable with saying. It's okay to have easy work. I don't know why everybody think you got to work so hard for everything. There are moments in your life where work will be harder than other times, where you're trying to create something and it may be a little bit harder, but it still should be enjoyable. But to just have a whole life set on virtue and value that is like, I'm just going to work hard my whole life and that's going to be who I am. I'm telling you, it will walk you right into an early grave. I've watched it happen firsthand. It will walk you into an early grave. And all people are going to say about you when you go is like, oh, that was a hard-working person. Oh, that was a hard-working woman. And guess what? What did it mean? Nothing. You still never lived the life you wanted to live, never been appreciated and valued the way you wanted to be valued. And it's because the frequency was not right. The alignment was not right. The flow was not right. So that's what I have. I can go on and on about this forever. Because, you know, when I get on that, what do they call it? When I get on I forgot what they call it, when you set a soapbox. When you're standing on a soapbox, you know, I start to go. You know what the soapbox comes from? It's from the person. Remember, like when people used to have the town crier and they would get in a square, and like it was always young boys, so they would turn over a soapbox and stand on top of it and shout out, you know, hear ye, and they would do like all the morning news before we had like printers and papers and stuff like that. You know, I thought that was interesting. So if I stand on my soapbox and get started and get revved up, I have to pull myself down. But I just wanted to share that before I start cooking this Sunday. I'm very happy, and I'm about to do some meal prep too. And that's about it. And then do my hair later. I hope you all have a beautiful, beautiful Sunday. I'm going to try to get this uploaded while I'm cooking. And get your frequency together. That's what the rest and the relaxation is for, to get in alignment. If you're not feeling good on the inside, then that stuff on the outside is going to be real hard to create or to even enjoy when you get it. Because it's one thing to get it, but when you get it, you got to enjoy it. Like sometimes we just like, what's the next thing? What's the next thing? And I got a video coming about that too. Sometimes you just need to learn how to enjoy it. And that's getting in alignment. And as you're enjoying it, you'll be shocked. Something else will pop up that you really wanted to experience. And you're just like, what? I wasn't even done enjoying this. What? Anyway, I hope y'all have a wonderful, wonderful, wonderful day.